The death toll after Friday's explosion at the Saratoga hotel in Havana rose to 32. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva officially announces his presidential candidacy for the general elections in October. The Arab League condemned Israel's approval of the construction of 4,000 new housing units in the occupied West Bank. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news, and we do so in Cuba. Authorities confirmed 32 deaths after Friday's explosion sparked by a gas leak at the Saratoga hotel in Havana. 19 people are still missing. Search and rescue efforts continue at the Saratoga hotel. On Saturday, rescuers finished the search efforts in the upper floors of the damaged structure and assured that they were empty. Authorities estimate that there may be people trapped still in the basement and sub-basement of the building, so they do not rule out finding survivors. In the meantime, rescue workers continue the removal of debris to facilitate rescue operations. At the same time, hospitals in the Cuban capital continue to attend to the wounded, and blood donations have increased to support the victims of the explosion at the Saratoga.
We have to move forward. Let there be corpses, but maybe still alive. The longer we wait, the less life will reach them. So we have to do it as carefully as you say, but quickly. It is slow because it is a meticulous, very careful job. As I explained, there are people trapped inside the building. The work has to be done little by little, extracting the rubble as there may be victims along with the debris.
For a second consecutive day, the first Secretary of the Communist Party and President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermudez, visited the site of the explosion at Hotel Saratoga in Havana. The President was updated on the technical review actions that are carried out on the hotel structures and surrounding buildings. Speaking with rescuers, paramedics, members of the Red Cross and other people who have worked intensively since Friday in the rescue effort, President Díaz-Canel thanked all of them for all their effort. Luis Antonio Torres, first Secretary of the Cuban Communist Party in Havana, made a statement on the events at the Saratoga Hotel in Havana and stressed that the search and rescue efforts are progressing at the site.
Well, as you know, all night long we continue the work of rescue and search for human lives or rescue of corpses that are in the affected area. As I have explained since the first intervention I made yesterday morning, this is a slow task, because it is a search for corpses or people who have survived. There, besides, we are in the presence of a structure that, although in the not collapsing all its dimensions, there are important parts that collapsed. Therefore, the work of the specialists, the technicians of the fire department, and of other institutions that are participating is slow because of the level of responsibility that they have in the search and the rescue efforts.
Likewise, the first Secretary of the Communist Party indicated that specialists from different governmental entities are evaluating the situation of the building.
At this moment, with the presence of Commander Ramiro, the Minister of Construction, the OSD partner, the project, the ENIA, everyone, they are assessing the situation of the building. Remember that it has not yet been possible for these specialists to enter at the places. The firemen have entered. They are searching for lives of corpses, but now the process begins. Those that are being released. That the specialists then begin to enter to analyze the structure and evaluate the situation to know if the building can be preserved or not.
On the accident at the Saratoga Hotel, the Chief of Cuba's Civil Defense, Ramon Pardo Guerra, highlighted the quick and joint efforts of the society and the island's authorities.
There was a joint and a rapid action of the whole system organized by the civil defense. We are the force acting at the time, the firefighters, the rescuers, the party force, the government and human solidarity, that is, the people who were on the spot, who were the first to help.
Moving to other topics, in Haiti, hundreds of people in the north of Port-au-Prince took to the streets this Friday to celebrate their return to normality after 2 weeks of gang warfare. Residents of the northern neighborhood of Croix de Maison also claimed that the national government failed to act in light of the clashes that kept businesses and schools closed for more than 10 days. In addition, the conflict also resulted in burned houses and the permanent anxiety of the local population. All this is as a result of violence between Haiti's main gangs, Shem Mechon and the rival 400 Maoiseau. However, the territorial war between two rival gangs continues in other districts of the capital.
I asked for peace. I also asked people not to turn away from the area. As in Martisan, all activities are stopped. We want to return to activities again. I asked everyone who goes to public parks in other areas like arcades, cabaret, that they come back to their homes.
The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, arrived this Friday in Tegucigalpa, where he was received by his Honduran counterpart, Xiomara Castro. The Mexican president visits the country as part of his international tour of Central America and the Caribbean. During a press conference, both presidents called for strengthening cooperation in different sectors and agree on the need to advance in alternative development models to neoliberalism in order to benefit the great majorities. The meeting between the presidents took place after Castro completed her first 100 days in office. Honduras is the third stop in the working tour that Mexican President López Obrador is making to 4 Central American nations and Cuba. The main topics on his agenda will be cooperation for development, investment, migration, the fight against drug trafficking, security, among others. During a meeting with her Mexican counterpart, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, Honduran President Xiomara Castro emphasized that migration is not a crime and said together with the Mexican administration they will work to make migration an option and not an obligation for Hondurans.
Together, we will fight against the violence that threatens us, defend the rights of those who migrate, guarantee coexistence, and build the conditions that allow our citizens to remain in their countries, so they do not have to leave behind their families, communities, culture, and look far away for the opportunities and security they do not find at home. So those who migrate do so by choice and not by obligation. Migration is a human right, not a crime.
In the meantime, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said we require multilateral cooperation to stop irregular migration and demand resources from the United States to finance development in Central America.
The exercise of freedom of transit is sacred, but it is unacceptable that many people are forced to leave their homeland because of hunger, insecurity, or a total lack of opportunities in life. This kind of forced and massive migration is a phenomenon that involves the countries of origin, transit, and destination. And the only way to solve this is through understanding and multilateral cooperation.
We are taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. This Saturday, the former president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, officially announced his presidential candidacy for the general elections in October. The activity took place in the city of Sao Paulo at the event headed by the former president. Da Silva was launched the Let's Go Together for Brazil movement, which brings together the 7 political parties that support Lula. It also includes multiple unions and social organizations such as the Landless Movement. The Workers' Party pointed out that the movement Let's Go Together for Brazil seeks to return the nation to the path of social justice, economic growth, sovereignty, and democracy. During the ceremony to announce his presidential candidacy, former Brazilian head of state Lula da Silva called to defend national sovereignty.
It is more than urgent to restore the sovereignty of Brazil, but defending sovereignty is not only the importance of protecting our land, sea, and airspace borders, but it also means defending our natural resources. See, rivers, biodiversity, forests, and mainly guaranteeing the sovereignty of the Brazilian people and the right to a full democracy.
Likewise, during the ceremony, former President Lula da Silva stressed that defending the country's sovereignty means strengthening bilateral relations with neighboring countries and international organizations.
To defend our sovereignty is to defend South America, Latin America, and Caribbean integration, and to truly strengthen Mercosur, UNASUR, CELAC, and the BRICS. It is to establish better alliance for the country without leaving anyone behind and to fight for a new global rule. Brazil is too big a country to be left out as a social outcast in the war through submission, denial, and aggressions against our biggest commercial allies, causing great economic losses for the country. Therefore, friends, defending our sovereignty means defending Petrobras, which is being dismantled day after day.
A group of demonstrators marched Friday from Italia Square to the hospital known as Former Central Center in support of journalist Francisca Santova, who was shot last weekend. The protest ended with police repression outside the healthcare center. Previously, a rally was organized by Señal 3 La Victoria, the community channel where she used to work, the journalist, who was seriously injured while covering the Labor Day march in Central Station. As reported by Carabineros at 1900 local hours on Friday, hundreds of people gathered outside the former Central Hospital were setting up barricades, and at about 8 p.m. local time, a procedure was initiated because the demonstrators allegedly had started to vandalize a gas station and a drugstore near the hospital. In response to this situation, the police began to repress the demonstrators using the water cannon in the sector.
It is important to be here, to continue to highlight this struggle and everything that happened on Sunday, which was regrettable. On Sunday, we really suffered. I would say that it was practically a trap. They were waiting for us, to attack us. Drug dealers were ready. Before we arrived with the whole demonstration, the repression and the attack had already begun.
Francisca is a comrade, she is a friend, and the situation she's going through hurts me a lot. But Francisca represents the struggle of all us here, and the best way we can contribute to the battle Francisca is going through in the hospital is to keep up the fight, to keep going on the street, because they wanted to impose fear on us with what happened on Sunday, but we are telling them that we are not afraid of them.
France's Emmanuel Macron was sworn in for his second term as president on Saturday, promising to lead the country with a new method as his political rivals kicked off campaigning for next month's legislative elections. In a country where presidents rarely get re-elected, Macron won by 58.5% of the votes in the second round against far-right Marine Le Pen, despite strong opposition to his pro-business policies and a proposal to raise the retirement age. In a short speech, he spoke of the need to innovate at a time of unprecedented challenges for the world and for France, and said his second term would be new and not merely a continuation of his first 5 years in office.
To act relentlessly with a course that of being a more independent nation, of living better, and of building a French and European response to the challenge of our century. This action, as we all know, comes at a time in the life of our nation when there are many fears, as well as divide.
Irish Republican and Democratic Socialist Party Sinn Féin was poised for a historic first ever win in elections for the Northern Ireland Assembly after vote counting resumed on Saturday. Tallies from Thursday complex proportional voting showed that the former political wing of the IRA parliamentary group had secured 18 seats for the 90-seat legislature, setting on course for victory. England, Wales and Scotland also voted in local and regional elections on Thursday, punishing embattled Prime Minister Boris Johnson's scandal-mired Conservative Party, but without a landslide for the main opposition Labour Party. Sinn Féin is targeting 28 seats to claim the role of First Minister for leader Michelle O'Neill after winning her own seat on Friday. O'Neill called it the election of a generation and time for real change.
Today ushers in a new era, which I believe presents us all with an opportunity to reimagine relationships in this society on the basis of fairness, on the basis of equality and on the basis of social justice. Irrespective of religious, political or social backgrounds, my commitment is to make politics work.
I am delighted with the result for Sinn Féin. I mean, it's clear that our vote has surged. We have had a very positive and a very successful campaign, and we look forward now to getting back to work. Michelle will lead our team on Monday up to Stormont.
Dozens of military vehicles and personnel marched through the streets in Moscow on Saturday as part of the rehearsal for the annual military parade on May 9th to commemorate Victory Day in the Great Patriotic War. Among the military equipment featured in the rehearsal were Topol-M intercontinental ballistic missiles, T-14 Armata tank, and the Soviet medium tank that became a symbol of victory over Nazi Germany during World War II, the T-34. In addition to the flag of the Russian Federation, spectators at the event also carried symbols of the Red Army, whose members hoisted the red flag over the Reichstag on May 2, 1945. The parade became an annual event after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Under Vladimir Putin's administration, Victory Day has become a chance to remember the sacrifices of World War II. We have more stories coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Arab League on Saturday condemned Israel's approval of the construction of 4,000 new housing units in U.S. settlements in the occupied West Bank and the demolition of 12 villages south of Hebron. In a press release, the organization stated that the occupation authorities' announcement of new construction plans and authorizing the destruction of villages, displacement of thousands of people from their homes, and confiscation of thousands of dunams of land between the cities of Jerusalem and Jericho were equivalent to war crimes and crimes against humanity under the international law. It cautioned that the Israeli schemes, which are part of escalating Israeli attacks on the Palestinian people and are considered as war crimes, will have adverse repercussions on international security and stability. Syria is ready to provide assistance to the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, Syrian ambassador to Russia Riyad Haddad said during a working trip to the city of Yekaterinburg on Saturday. The ambassador expressed his government's support to both republics and stressed that for over 8 years his people have been facing bombings, regular damages, and an unfair blockade by Western-backed neo-Nazis. Haddad reaffirmed that this is the reason why Syria is working to provide comprehensive and humanitarian assistance to the Donbas republics. According to the envoy, the Syrian people and government are ready to help the countries that have been subjected to Western aggression. Afghanistan's Taliban rulers on Saturday ordered all Afghan women to wear head-to-toe clothing in public, a sharp, hard-line pivot that confirmed the worst fears of rights activists and was bound to further complicate Taliban dealings with an already distrustful international community. The decree, which calls for women to only show their eyes and recommends they wear head-to-toe burqa, evokes similar restrictions on women during the Taliban's previous rule between 1996 and 2001. Girls have been banned from schools beyond grade 6 in most of the country since the Taliban's return. Universities opened earlier this year in much of the country, but since taking power, the Taliban edicts have been erratic. While a handful of provinces continue to provide education to all, most provinces close educational institutions for girls and women. Women's rights activist Narges Nessa said life is getting tougher for Afghan women, and many are losing hope as Taliban continue their harsh implementation of Islamic Sharia. The government of Ethiopia announced that it will export 100 megawatts of electricity to South Sudan every month for the next 3 years. Ethiopian Electric Power Company authorities informed that a South Sudanese delegation headed by the Minister of Energy and Dams, Peter Marcello, traveled to Sudan to finalize a memorandum of understanding about this transaction, agreed between both countries. In the first instance, 100 megawatts of electricity will be sent, and then the export will be gradually increased to 400 megawatts. The measure seeks to help the neighboring country to meet its growing demands and, in addition, to obtain foreign currency that will help develop important projects quickly. Protesters rallied in front of the Presidential Secretariat of Sri Lanka in Colombo on Saturday to voice their concern about the state of emergency and the use of force by police on peaceful protesters. The country is also going through its worst economic crisis in recent memory, triggering protests across the Indian Ocean island nation, with people demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his powerful ruling family. The head of state issued a decree declaring a public emergency on Friday. The declaration of emergency came on the same day that shops, offices, banks and schools closed across the country, hitting calls for a shutdown in protest against the president and his family. Trade unions have warned of continued strikes from May 11th if they do not resign by then. The first round of legislative elections and local elections in the Republic of the Congo will be held on July 10th, according to a government decision announced on state television Telecongo. The Congolese Labour Party, PCT, of President Denis Sassou Nguesso, who will be 79 years old in 2022 and almost 48 years at the head of the country, is the leading party of the majority and invested its candidates. It has 92 deputies out of 151 in the outgoing assembly. The only opposition party with a parliamentary group in the lower house of parliament, the Pan-African Union for Social Democracy, intends to take part in the elections. Also, the Alliance for the Republic and Democracy of Mathias Zon, former Minister of Finance, and the Federation of the Congolese Opposition of Clement Mierasa are in favor of a boycott, believing that the election was decided in advance. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.